Okay, so welcome to rule number one of being in the gym. Something that over the years I've kind of witnessed. I may have indulged in myself. Now, rule number one when you walk into the gym has to be leaving ego outside the door. Now, you can either hear this or you'll see this in action. So you'll either see people walking in, first time in the gym, but they'll walk around with a pigeon chested or walking around like, they've got some carpet rolls underneath their arms, talking and acting like they're the big man. I'm gonna have to say out of the sexes, it is mainly the male species that is probably guilty of this. Or you'll hear them talking about, I can bench press this, I can squat this, and that's my PB. It's like, so what? Listen, I'm going to tell you from experience, I have been victim of leading with ego, and in doing so, I have maybe picked a weight because the guy next to me had a heavy weight and I didn't want to look inferior, so I kind of picked up a weight and I was swinging away just to feed the ego of saying I moved that weight from A to B, even though I may have done it incorrectly, and as a result, injured myself. So, from experience, I'm telling you, the only competition that you have is yourself. As long as you put 100% effort in, you are not in that gym to compete against anybody else. The only person that you see looking back at you in the mirror is your only competition. So with that in mind, as long as you know you put 100% effort in every single time and you take that one step forward every single time you come into the gym, that's the best you can do. It's not about coming in and taking a giant leap thinking, well, this is where I am right now and this is really where I want to be physically or with my health or whatever the goal is. And only when I get to there will I feel like I'm happy. Every time you come in and every single time you put that 100% commitment and effort into your workout, you get that one step closer. The journey of 1,000 miles was taken one step at a time. So as long as you keep on taking that one step, those one steps will eventually add up. And as long as you carry on taking the action, you will get to your end destination. So ego can be it can be a useful thing in the sense that it kind of spurs you on, but it can also be a very, very detrimental thing in the sense that you end up competing against other people, but you have no idea what they're training for, what their goals are, what their history is, what they may be taking or not taking, and all the variables are completely different. So to compete against somebody else is, in a single word, idiotic. So with that in mind, please stop competing either verbally or physically with anybody else. You don't need to. You don't need to impress anybody else. You're not in here to impress anybody else. You're in here to impress yourself. So as long as you impress yourself with everything that you put into, you leave nothing on the table. When you come in, you do a workout, you give it your all. Nobody can compete against that. Okay? It's not about the weight. It's not about your clothing. It's not about anything else that you're in there to compete with. It's about you pushing yourself and each time stepping out of your comfort zone, realizing your talents and your abilities that you had all along, but because of limiting beliefs, ego, maybe you didn't think you had. So that's rule number one. Your competition isn't other people. Your competition is your procrastination, your ego, the unhealthy food you consume, the amount of alcohol you drink, the knowledge you neglect, the negative behaviors you're either nurturing or even tolerating from others, and your willingness to stay in your comfort zone. Compete against that before you look at others. It's easy to compare yourself against other people, especially as they're flooding our screens, our TVs, our social media with images of themselves, with their perfect bodies, Photoshop no doubt. But when you compete against other people, you judge yourself based on their values and their metrics. Now the problem is that even if you win, you only do something that's important to them, not you. Now life is a competition, but it's not a race against anyone else. Rather, the real journey is only against yourself and the unrealized potential that you have within you. This is what Jay-Z means when he raps and he says things like, I look in the mirror, my only opponent. There is also the famous adage, often misattributed towards Einstein, that says, if you judge a fish on its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing it is stupid. So, similarly, Kanye West says, it's not about the competition. It's about competing with yourself. That's why when I play video games, I like playing racing games instead of fighting games. Fighting games are won by beating someone else down. Racing is a matter of figuring out your technique and driving as fast as you can, and that's how I live my life, and that's the way it has been this year. End quote. So, rather than competing against the next person, you can chase your future self. Matthew McConaughey chases his ideal self 10 years in the future. He says every single day, every single week, every single month, every single year of my life, my hero is always 10 years away. I'm never going to beat that hero. I'm not going to attain that. I know I'm not, and it's absolutely fine with me because it keeps me with somebody to keep on chasing. And the most important part of competing against yourself is the ability to set your own values, your own metrics. You choose the goals, you choose what fits you best, and what you really want to compete on, and what you don't want to compete with. And yes, sometimes you are going to lose. You might do worse than you did before. Some days it's just enough not to take a step backwards, and other days, when you least expect it, you bound forward. Either way, when you compete with yourself, you won't be lured into other people's dramas, other people's competitions, other people's values. Move forward, but only evaluate yourself based on meaningful things to you. Smile, nod, and then forget it when other people try to entice you into competing with them. Only you can decide what really matters to you.